And if you've been following us for a while, we've been talking about this vibrational reality, and we call it your vortex. It's a vibrational reality where who you really are is vibrationally dwelling, and who you really are is different, sometimes greatly different and sometimes slightly different from who you are being. And it all has to do with how big that gap is between what the vibration of your vortex is and what the vibration of your day-to-day experience is. So most people are keeping that gap significant by their intense observation of what is. It is literally like calling what is past tense and what's in the vortex present tense. And you can't focus on past and present at the same time. Now, we know we're asking a lot of you. In fact, you think we're asking even maybe more than we are asking. We're not asking you to ignore your present tense. We're just asking you to put more emphasis on what's in the vortex. Give the vortex more airtime. Well, the vortex is less satisfying for most humans because you can't see it, hear it, smell it, taste it, touch it. You can feel it. Yeah. The vortex is an emotional experience. The now reality is a see it, hear it, smell it. So just for clarification, let's call what is conditional and what's in the vortex unconditional. So let's say that there's a condition that you want to change. Could be a bodily condition, could be a relationship condition, could be a financial condition, could be a world condition. There's a condition that you would like to be different than it is. And when you look at it as it is, your very attention to it as it is gets in the way of the evolution you seek. Because conditional doesn't work. Because condition holds you in the past and doesn't let you move into the future. You following this a bit? We know we're stretching your brain to get this, but stay with us because you're on the verge of understanding this. So let's say that what you want is more money, and the condition right now is full of evidence to the contrary. Your bank account tells you by the minute how much is in it, and your wallet does too, and you're moving around in life with all kinds of things that you are seeing and wanting and not being able to afford. Your credit card statements are coming in. In other words, there's a lot of factual information that is confirming to you what is, and we want to say what has been, but what is, what has been. So you can't do anything right now to change that. There's nothing that you can do in this moment that's going to change that right now. Long term you could, but right now it's not going to change. But what can change right now is you can change from worry to fun right now, by focusing. You could change from concern to less concern right now. You could take a path of least resistance. Let's say you've got a job and you don't like it. Maybe it changed, maybe you've changed. You don't like your job, you'd like to quit. So you say, I'm going to quit my job. Well, that's not the path of least resistance. Quitting your job isn't the path of least resistance. You don't like it, but quitting it you would not like even more for a lot of reasons. So you can't do anything to change that condition right now. You're sort of trapped in it if you're approaching it conditionally. But you could call it a temporary job. That gives you a little relief. You could call it a short-term job. You could acknowledge that you're on your way to something that you like better. You could acknowledge that that job helps you identify what you like more. In other words, you can have an unconditional improvement in your emotion, and you can do it right now. You can improve your emotion enough that you become a vibrational match to what is current in your vortex, and now you and your vortex are one. There's no split in the vibration. So now the vibration of your vortex can be realized by you. An idea will occur to you. Now you're in the receptive mode. where when you're looking at the money that you don't have, you're not in the receptive mode. You see what we're getting at? It's powerful. When you become unconditional, when you don't spend so much time trying to explain what is by comparing what your is to what somebody else's is, by explaining to somebody else how you got to your what is, by defending your what is, even though your what is doesn't please you right now. And we just want you to let go of that conditional reality just for a little while and accept that everything you want to change is because you believe you will feel better when you do, and that you do have the ability to feel better now, whether any of it changes right now or not. And when you get that, you've got everything. And that's what's going on with you. In other words, you're starting to translate that, which means you're getting ideas about releasing some of that. Most of you spend so much time accumulating whatever it is. Maybe it's relationships, maybe it's money, maybe it's stuff. Go to the store and buy one more thing and bring it home, in order to fill a void that can only be filled with this vibrational acuity. In other words, that's what you're reaching for all along. And so what happens is, the more you allow yourself vibrational alignment, then the more you enjoy this alignment evolving, not devolving, evolving into more manifestations that please you. And so, of course, isn't it logical that as you evolve vibrationally, that the things that surround you would change too?
Right.
Yeah. We want to clarify the statement that you just made, and we want you to understand how it can help you and how it cannot help you.
Okay.
It's making sense to you because you're receiving the inspiration of it. But when you play it back through the lens of other people, then it doesn't make sense to you.
Right.
Well, don't do that.
Yes. Okay.
Because that's what holds you in patterns that aren't serving you.
Right.
It might not make sense to the old you, who really, really spent a long time looking for that and finding it and bringing it home and really liking it.
Yes.
But it's not a vibrational match to the current you.
Thank you.
And you got to be current or you're not whole. You got to be current or you're not in sync with the whole of who you are. You got to be current or you're not the extension of source energy that you mean to be. You got to be current. You got to be vibrationally current. And when you are vibrationally current, all kinds of things that felt meaningful to you because they were filling a void or shoring something up become unnecessary, and they easily fall by the wayside. And you get lighter and freer and lighter and freer. And we're not talking you out of possessions. That's not what we mean at all. But we are talking you out of possessions that you're using to justify or validate your goodness or your worthiness or your wholeness, because they will reflect how you feel, you see.
Well, the best way to predict your future is to create it. Not from the known, but from the unknown. And that void, that unknown, is the perfect place to create from. Now, why is this dangerous? Because when you're living in survival 70% of the time, there's better chances in survival from running from the unknown than embracing the unknown, right? If there's a predator out there, you hear something around the corner and you can't see it, that's an unknown. You're going to run. You're not going to go, and it's not a time to trust. It's not a time to open your heart. It's not a time to communicate. Here, kitty, kitty. It's not a time to do that. It's time to run. You'll never trust the unknown in that state. So if people are living by these emotional states of survival, they're never going to want to step out into the unknown because they can't predict the future. So they'd rather hold on to what they have. It turns out that those emotions of stress are highly addictive. They give us a rush of adrenaline, rush of energy. And so people use the problems and conditions in their lives to reaffirm their addiction to that emotion so they can remember who they are as a somebody. So then, if your thoughts can turn on the stress response, and those stress chemicals are addictive, then we become addicted to our own thoughts. So then stepping out into that unknown is where true greatness happens, because that's where the person begins to say, what thoughts do I want to fire and wire in my brain? What behaviors will I want to demonstrate in my new life? Can I rehearse them in my mind? And the mere process of mental rehearsal, this is neuroscience now, begins to install the circuits in your brain to look like the experience has already occurred. You're priming your brain into the map of the future instead of the record of the past. And then the true person who's in the process of transformation will say, can I teach my body emotionally what that future is going to be like? Can I begin to embrace the joy of my new life? And their body, as their unconscious mind, begins to believe it's in the future instead of in the past. Now, that process is not an overnight process. We don't jump from the old self to the new self. It requires that continuous process of changing our biology. But I can tell you, in observing people who have healed themselves of very serious health conditions, who've healed themselves of some pretty difficult scars from the past, who've overcome addictions, who've created new opportunities and new jobs and new relationships and a new life, had to cross that river. And that is when they're literally, from a biological standpoint, a new personality. And your personality creates your personal reality. That's it. And your personality is made of how you think, how you act, and how you feel. So the present personality who's sitting here today has created the present personal reality called their life. Which means then, if you want to create a new personal reality, you got to change your personality. And that means you got to start thinking about what you've been thinking about and change it. Look at your unconscious habits and behaviors, what you say, what you do, and become conscious of it. And change them. And look at the emotions that have kept you anchored to the past and decide if those emotions belong in your future. I think the biggest problem is that most people try to create a new personal reality as the same personality, and it doesn't work. So then as we begin to demystify this, and the person starts to say, oh my God, the disease that I have is because it's connected to this personality. Is it possible that if I change my personality, just like a person with a multiple personality disorder, who has an allergy to nylon stockings in one personality and type 1 diabetes in another, is it possible then if I change my personality, that the disease exists in the old personality and I'm literally someone else? Is it possible then from a biological standpoint that they're healed and changed? So to answer the question, it's difficult because we're breaking out of a biological mold. It's difficult because most people don't know that they have within their reach all the tools to do it, because they have, number 3, been conditioned on some level to believe that the new hairstyle or the new type of beer they're going to drink or the sports car or whatever it is going to change their state. Right. And that's the hypnosis. And when I wrote The Placebo, You Are the Placebo, the biggest thing that I walked away with after writing that book was how hypnotized and programmed we really are. And that's bothered me ever since I wrote the book, because people watch things in their external environment and they accept, believe, and surrender to that information without any analysis, and they're programmed. And so when you and I start waking up and say no to those programs, and we start to think that we're maybe a little bit more unlimited than we're given credit for, and it's not driven for profits or self-interest, but when people start to wake up and say, hey, I healed myself of this condition, I healed myself of Parkinson's, I healed myself of lupus, I've healed myself of cancer, I've healed myself of rheumatoid arthritis, I've healed myself of chronic pain, I healed myself of food allergies. Hey, yeah, I was abused as a child, yeah, that's right, I was beat up by a violent father, and I lived in vulnerability and fear for the last 25 years, but that fear has signaled the wrong gene, and I developed this genetic condition that doctors said I had no way of healing. But when I overcame that fear and I broke out of it, I started to signal new genes in new ways, and that disease doesn't exist. Let me tell you, if you listen to that woman's story, and you listen to all the trials that she had gone through, and how she overcame herself, and she reached a place of such wholeness and self-satisfaction that she could care less if she had the disease, and that's the moment it went away, and you listen to that story, it's going to give you permission on some level that it's possible for you to do the same.